I'm putting together a test lecture, so to speak, where I'm going to describe to you what I envision moving forward for the remainder of the semester. Whenever the switch to online instruction was decided on, shortly after that, I put out a survey to have you respond as to whether or not you had significant obstacles to internet access. And it seems that so far nobody has identified significant barriers, but I will keep monitoring that survey and reach out to anybody who does identify significant barriers. All of us are going to face some kind of minor inconveniences, and we'll just have to work together to overcome those in order to allow for the online instruction to take place. I just want to assure you too, if you have some sort of a documented accommodation through DRS, I will be paying particular attention to that accommodation, especially as it applies to the potential for extended time needs on exams. So here's where I'm going to outline for you the major revisions you can expect for the remainder of the semester. Lectures will be delivered somewhat like you're seeing right here, with simply a voiceover on a YouTube video. It will be an asynchronous thing where you can view the video whenever it's convenient for you, but I will be making myself available on the discussion forums on CourseWeb during the time we would have class, in case you should need to ask me any questions about the material. But the videos will be of a shorter duration than the actual class. That being said, you probably want to just be sure you don't fall behind on that. There are still a few more chapters to cover, so you want to be sure you get all that content in. Although we will intend to cover all of the chapters, there may be the possibility that we won't go into as great of detail with these last few chapters, and the expectation level then for what you should need to show that you understand that material from these last few chapters will be adjusted accordingly when it comes time for exams. Speaking of exams, the planned schedule that we had in the syllabus will need to be adjusted. Exam 3 is not going to take place as soon as it was originally scheduled to because of the delay in implementing this online instruction. And speaking of online, the exams have to be taken online. This is really the only option we have available at this point. Nevertheless, I will be doing my best to make sure that these are designed fairly. I've given online exams before through CourseWeb, so I know how to do things like allow for extra time for those who need it according to their accommodations. I know how to randomize questions, and of course I will be flexible with you if you should run into a technical issue. We can talk about that on a case-by-case basis. I don't expect that to happen to a lot of you, since most of you have reported that you have reliable internet access. I don't expect a lot of hiccups, but I will remain flexible with things. Just reach out to me as soon as you encounter any kind of technical issue, if that should arise. Many of you voiced concern about the final projects, so my thought is that we are going to need to shift to doing these final projects individually rather than in groups. I'm going to say a few more words about that on the next slide, but just so you know that the expectation level will be adjusted to reflect the fact that you won't be having other classmates help you, and you'll be doing this alone. Speaking of adjustments, there may be some adjustments to the weighting scheme that you'll be graded on. These can only benefit you. I will make an effort to make it clear to you what your grade would have been before this switch to online instruction, and then that's kind of your worst case scenario. Your grade will not be lower than what you've received so far. So that these last few weeks of online instruction will just be an opportunity to improve upon that. That being said, you do still need to complete the final project. If you don't complete that could negatively impact your grade. So here are some special guidelines for the final project. The topic that we had talked about before, I'm not planning to change that. So if you already had an idea or a solution, you can still stick with that idea. And even if it means that you're repeating something that other group members are doing, that's fine. You won't need to go into quite as much detail with the level of the research that you do, since you'll be working alone. And what I'll do is I'll provide a link on CourseWeb for you to upload your project presentation. You can choose whether or not you want to do some sort of slide presentation with a voiceover. There does need to be some sort of a voiceover, because slides themselves don't necessarily tell me what you would have presented in person. So I do want to hear your explanatory comments. So I do want some kind of a voiceover there. Or you can just simply do a YouTube video if you were planning to do some sort of presentation that didn't involve slides to begin with. And if your computer isn't capable of doing an audio voiceover very easily, and you still really want to do the slides, there are a couple options you have available. You can do what I'm doing right now and just do a screen capture where you're recording your voice over your phone. Or you can even prop up your phone in a desperate situation and point it directly at the screen of your computer and just simply record as you're speaking. The presentations, I'm going to adjust the length that I expect. I think originally we talked about 5 to 10 minute presentations. I'm changing that so that they are 1 to 3 minute presentations. You definitely don't need to exceed 3 minutes in length, since you're doing this again independently and you won't be using classmates to help. That being said, if you and your group members have spoken to one another already and you really believe that you can still adequately prepare a group presentation using Zoom or FaceTime for, a way of meeting and discussing and preparing, then you can just turn in one project for your entire group, and one of you can decide who's going to do the voiceover or video. If you go that direction, I'm not going to necessarily hold you to a higher standard than those who are doing individual presentations. So that's always an option if you really were intent on wanting to work together in a group. Okay, so finally, the tentative adjusted schedule is going to look like this. In the next week, we will finish up chapter 9 and also start chapter 10. And then the following week, we will just finish up chapter 10. The week after that, April 6th, is when you can expect that exam 3 to take place. And then in week 15 is when you'll do your projects and submit them to me. I'll expect them by the end of that week. And as I had said before, there is no final exam, so that during that final exam week, you don't have anything in particular to do for the class. So basically, once you submit that final presentation, you'll be done. Okay, so there's not too much to get through, but we can do it together, and I look forward to talking to you more in future lectures. Thanks.